I am heading to right now a meeting put on by my councilman. I think it's my councilman, Brad Lander, who's been incredibly active in Brooklyn. And there will be, I think, a few words at the beginning, and then we'll be breaking out into groups to tackle different issues. There were at least 12 different groups that were on the list. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on, how people are organizing. You know, said I wanted to get involved, and I'm in it. Yeah, we'll see.
So a lot of rotten stuff has happened since we were here last time, and unfortunately a lot more is coming.
Yes.
But it is also true that an extraordinary amount of powerful, beautiful organizing and activism has started to happen.
So we just went to a meeting put on by our councilman, Brad Lander. It was actually the second meeting that he's put on, and this one was much more action-based. The last one was a bunch of really great people in the community talking about kind of how to go forward and the different groups that have been doing really great work in this community. And tonight was much more, how can we take the momentum that the election has created and put it to work, and put it to sustainable work that will continue to be a force for good for a long time, and not just in reaction in the immediate aftermath of the election. So there was a bit of an opening, and then we broke up into 15 different groups, and we went to the group that was mainly talking about elections and how to organize for elections moving forward, specifically obviously the 2018 and 2020 elections, but you know, kind of everything within that umbrella. And then the group that was broken down further, we were talking specifically about what elections to focus on and kind of how to organize around that. I think it was really interesting. We talked about a lot of stuff, but
I think it was focused. It wasn't simply talking about, this is a terrible thing that happened and, woe is us. And it was more than simply, just making noise. It was about how do we, create change and, do it at all levels. Obviously they had, big groups that were talking solidarity, with our immigrant neighbors and with our Muslim and Jewish neighbors.
Yeah, there were a lot of different groups that I would have been equally as interested to go to.
But it was about concrete action. The one we went to was about how do you win, and that's the bottom line is when you look at where we are right now, it's something that's been 8 years in the making, with people who on the other side who have organized well and who have won state elections, who won local elections, who won House seats, won back the House, won back the Senate. This didn't happen overnight, and it's an easy salve to talk about. Let's find the next presidential candidate, but that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And the fact is, most of these laws that are a threat to us, or the things that we care about, those happen at the state level. It is unconscionable that states like Pennsylvania are tilted so heavily Republican when the electorate votes roughly 50-50. There shouldn't be 13 of 19, representatives out of Pennsylvania that are Republicans. One of the things that was brought up very briefly in that group was a discussion about people either helping bringing people to places like the DMV to get IDs.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting in the context of having just gotten my finally getting my New York State driver's license the other day. I paid $60 for that conversion.
Yeah.
And while that's just an annoying little charge on the credit card for me, for low-income folks, that's something they can't do. And that's a real issue to look at. How do you are there people out there who are raising money to help people pay the fee to get a driver's license?
Yeah.
Especially in restrictive states like North Carolina or Wisconsin. There are good court challenges that are still out there on voter ID laws. At the same time, they're probably here to stay in a lot of states. And so it's not a matter of saying, well, this is terrible, this is unfair. It's
how do you work around it?
right. And so
how do you make
fine,
progress?
Help another X% of the electorate get a driver's license. But it is about taking concrete action, because we don't get to just sit back and complain.
Yeah.
Life is unfair. This is terribly unfair. But it's the reality that we're stuck with.
And you have to work within that reality. You can't wipe the board.
I really enjoyed going to a session like tonight's where it was talking about, here are, how do we identify key races? How do we make sure that we win them? How do we make sure you're winning House seats and state assembly seats and state Senate seats in Pennsylvania and Indiana and wherever else you're looking at?
And definitely prioritizing the places that you're gonna get the most bang for your buck. You're gonna make an impact by making those calls. The close races, the races that that maybe were determined by people not voting. And I think that was something that we heard from a number of people tonight, saying that yes, there's a lot of gerrymandering. Yes, there is. All of these horrible things, but all hope is not lost. There are a lot of people out there, and obviously on a national level, there's a majority of people who voted who have similar ideas, but there are a lot of people out there just in general who maybe didn't vote this election, or maybe aren't registered, so aren't even counted within those numbers, or will be eligible to vote by next election. That there are a lot of people out there who do agree with our values, and it's just a matter of making sure that they realize the importance of getting their voice heard, and that really this is one of the only ways that we have of making our voice heard. You can have a protest, and you should have a protest, but that might get the news for that day, maybe that week. But electing an official that agrees with your values, that has a longer term importance. Making sure that the people who are in positions to make change and to make permanent change are the people who agree with our values, that is the most effective way. One of the interesting things tonight was, there are these 15 different groups, and because it was a physical meeting, because you were there in person, you had to choose to go to a room and talk with other people about one issue, and 1 out of 15, and it's really, really hard to do, especially right now. And especially for me, I have been very torn. I have been, not quite paralyzed, but very close to it in terms of how to act and what to focus on. And I think this sort of, situation where you have to physically choose which room to be in, which topic to focus on, is really important. Certainly for me, but I think a lot of people feel this way, that there are just so many issues, and they're all very, very, very important, but you're only one person. And fortunately, we have more than one person. We have thousands and millions of people who are galvanized now, and so it's not like, issues are going to be neglected, but you, as an individual, you can't focus on every single one of them, because you're not going to be effective at any of them if you try to do that. And you're going to exhaust yourself, and it's not going to be a sustainable way to, interact with this. And that's definitely been a lot of my thinking recently, is just how to narrow it down in terms of where to act, where to focus, certainly at least right now. It's hard, and that was recognized by a number of people tonight, saying that we acknowledge that you want to be in multiple rooms right now, which is why they're gonna kind of take notes and kind of funnel it all back and distribute among everyone, but you have to choose. You have to choose what to do in the moment, and otherwise you're not going to do anything. So I think that this was a good first step for me. I hope to go next time, and hope to continue and keep in touch with these people that we talked to tonight.
And that was actually a very good piece of concrete action, was one, taking a list from the entire room that we had for them to email and actually talk about. There's follow-up meetings, and they expect that you'll be there.
Yeah.
This is a working group that continues. It's not just one night brainstorming. It's, well, come back the next time, we'll talk about it again and again and again.
Right.
And even within our smaller group, taking down everybody's name and email for a listserv.
Yeah.
So we can further this conversation, which I think is, it makes me hopeful, because it was interesting to hear, Bobby Carroll came over, who's the new assemblyman for Park Slope, District 44, I think, and, gave a little talk about the importance of small groups like this, and, obviously, politician talking to a small group, it's... he's certainly going to
feel very politician-y right then.
Yes, a little bit, but it is true. I mean, if you look at the size of an assembly district or a state house district, in New York's, actually rather large. If you go to some of the states like Pennsylvania, which is way overrepresented in terms of the number of state representatives, for the population. You take that, you figure out the eligible population within that district, and then you narrow it down to the tiny percentage of people who actually vote, especially in a midterm, legislative election. And it's only, maybe a few hundred, a few thousand votes. How many people can you galvanize, or at least get out of their house to actually go vote, who normally wouldn't vote in these elections? That's all it takes to swing these. It's not about, some sea change and changing a district that's 60% Republican to be, Democratic. It's getting a few hundred extra people out, on a Tuesday morning when they don't want to go do it. Because these things matter.
So anyway, there is obviously a lot more to discuss. I hope to keep going to these meetings, of course, but also keep doing these videos. There's a lot to do, but there are a lot of people involved today that were not involved a month ago, and I think that there's a lot to take hope in with that. One of my things that I've been thinking about is sustained action. This momentum needs to be sustained, and we need to make sure that it is here in 2 years, it is here in 4 years, it is here in 10 years and 50 years. This is not a short-term issue. And I think it's caused a lot of people to take a hard look in the mirror, and it's caused a lot of institutions, hopefully the Democratic Party included, to take a hard look in the mirror and say, what are we doing? What did we do wrong? How do we move forward? How do we fix this? And how do we make sure that it doesn't happen again? This is just step one of a very, very long trek. That's it. So, thanks for watching. I hope to have more of this soon, and let me know what your thoughts are. Bye.